Hello, good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight. I'm Roger Johnson. Thank you for joining us. Our top story. Killed by a chicken mayonnaise sandwich. An inquest hears about a fatal listeria outbreak in a hospital. Beverly and Enid, who you just saw, were both being treated at the Manchester Royal Infirmary. Also tonight, almost 100 rental vans and cars parked along New Brighton prom are driving the locals crazy. Residents anger over delays in replacing dangerous cladding and in scrapping their bills to pay for it.
The government will say, OK, the building owner will fix that. The building owner turns around and said, actually, I don't have the money to fix that.
Royal recognition for the students who are working to protect their prickly neighbours on campus in Chester.
And our weather has certainly felt more spring-like. With higher temperatures, it just hasn't looked very spring-like, has it? Let's see if that will change over the next few days with a full live forecast later in the programme.
A joint inquest into the deaths of two women at the Manchester Royal Infirmary who died after eating sandwiches containing listeria has heard that the cause of the outbreak was most likely cross-contamination at the Selfhelp company which provided the cooked chicken. A total of 7 people died in the listeria outbreak in 2019, involving 9 confirmed cases, including one patient at Aintree Hospital in Liverpool. Mairead Smith has been at Manchester Coroner's Court and told us earlier what was said.
57-year-old Beverly Soa died on the 26th of April 2019 at Manchester Royal Infirmary. Mrs Enid Heap, who was 84, died 2 weeks later on the 6th of May. Both women had underlying ill health issues. The head of incident management from the Food Standards Agency gave evidence to their joint inquest today. And she said there was no evidence of issues with temperature control or shelf life of the chicken cooked by North Country Quality Foods in Salford. It was that company that provided the cooked chicken to the Good Food chain in Staffordshire, and it was that company that made the sandwiches that were supplied to Manchester Royal Infirmary, the sandwiches that contained the strain of listeria. Tina Potter told the inquest tests were carried out to identify the link between both the deaths of Enid Heap and Beverly Soa. She said North Country Quality Foods was found to be the earliest source of the outbreak. The court also heard it's extremely difficult to get rid of listeria if it takes a foothold in a business. Mrs Potter added it's not possible to determine at what point the outbreak strain of listeria became unsafe, but she did tell the jury that packets of chicken that were tested further on in the investigation were found to contain unprecedented levels of listeria, in fact 10 times the legal limit. Now sadly these cases were part of a wider outbreak. The jury also heard from a representative from the UK Health Security Agency, formerly Public Health England. Dr Leslie Larkin spoke about the involvement of the National Public Health Team after the death of a third patient at Aintree Hospital in Liverpool, who had also had sandwiches supplied by the Good Food chain. The investigation was escalated to a national level. The full outbreak involved 9 cases and sadly 7 people died. Those other deaths are not being dealt with in this inquest. The evidence has now been completed and the jury will be sent out to deliberate their conclusion on Friday morning. Mairead Smith, BBC North West Tonight, Manchester.
A teenager has been found guilty of the murder of a 19-year-old who was stabbed to death near a nightclub in Ormskirk. Matthew Dalby was attacked near Railway Road during a night out last July. His family described him as a vibrant, loving, funny teenager. 19-year-old Henry Houghton from Scarisbrick near Southport was today convicted after a 4-week trial. Lancashire police say a man has died after reports that someone was on fire at a railway station this morning. Officers were called to Church and Oswald-Twistle station at around 6:30, where the man was pronounced dead. It's not being treated as a suspicious death. Queen Camilla will visit the Isle of Man next week to officially confirm Douglas as a city. It received the honour as part of Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee celebrations in 2022. Queen Camilla will preside over a ceremony at the City Hall a week today and unveil a plaque. She'll also meet well-wishers, charity representatives and community groups during the trip. Lots more to read on the BBC News website tonight, of course. As always, the Isle of Man's Health Minister, Laurie Hooper, has been cleared of bullying allegations after an investigation. L.S. Lowry's Sunday Afternoon, that's the name of the painting. It's gone on display for the first time in decades at Christie's in London before it's auctioned there next week. And derelict buildings on Hilbre Island off Wirral are to be turned into an artist's retreat and a scientific research base. Those stories and many more online tonight at bbc.co.uk/news or via the BBC News app. Now, if you've been to New Brighton in Wirral, it is normally possible to park on the front there quite easily. But as you can see from the picture behind me, you will struggle to find a space these days. And that is because dozens of vans have been parked there. And while they are driving nowhere, it is driving the residents mad. Wirral Council says it is taking action, as Lindsay Prosser reports.
New Brighton is known for its long sandy beaches. And now the promenade is known for its long lines of white vans. Locals aren't happy.
They're a nightmare and they're just going to take up... we have bad enough trouble with when summer comes and we get what I call the tourists. But then if they're there, you just can't, there's going to be nowhere to park at all. So they need to move.
It's not good for New Brighton to have all them vans, is it, in the front?
I'm upset about it. I think it ruins New Brighton.
The vans first started appearing here 2 months ago. They're owned by a local van and fleet hire company, which has been looking for more storage sites. The council says it's agreed a site for the company to store these vans elsewhere. It expects them to be moved by the end of the month and says it will monitor the situation. The vans are taxed and insured, so parking here isn't illegal. But the local councillor believes it is antisocial.
The answer is, at the end of this month, we will be introducing a ban on overnight parking on the promenade so that these vehicles cannot be parked here any longer.
The community group, which keeps the town's beaches clean, is frustrated by what it says is an eyesore and fears as Easter approaches, visitors will find it hard to park here.
Which is, it's just not on. It's not. This prom is not here for the sole benefit of West Wallasey van hire. It's a very selfish attitude. Parking the vehicles 50% of the length of the promenade. It's not on.
Today we counted over 90 vans here. West Wallasey car and van hire were unavailable for comment. Lindsay Prosser, BBC North West Tonight, New Brighton.
Now, many people living in flats where cladding needs replacing following the Grenfell Tower disaster say that they are facing life-changing costs. And that is despite a law which is intended to protect them. It's called the Building Safety Act. It was brought in a couple of years ago to ensure that residents didn't have to pay. And it has to be said, some progress has been made. Now, government figures suggest that nearly 4,000 residential buildings across the country have unsafe cladding. And work to fix those cladding problems has been done, as you can see, at about a fifth of them. But 2 years ago, the government estimated that there could actually be more than 8,500 buildings between 11 and 18 metres high which needed remediation work doing. And campaigners here say that many leaseholders are still facing long waits and they're left with bills of thousands of pounds, as Phil McCann reports.
For Josh, this was home. Before he had to wrap up his furniture, he'd been living for 10 years here in Skyline Chambers in the up-and-coming Noma district in Manchester.
This building that you see along here with no lights on it is Skyline Chambers.
But now Josh is living just down the street. He's one of around 180 residents who were all moved into temporary hotels and then flats after one night last October when Greater Manchester Fire Service issued this notice, forcing everyone to leave because the fire risk at Skyline was so serious.
There was people, as I walked into the lobby of the building, in tears, leaving with children in their arms, crying.
Risks have been known about here and at thousands of other buildings for years, since shortly after the tragedy at Grenfell Tower.
You live with that every day and you do remember what happens in Grenfell, and it does go through your memory and you think, what if it's us next time?
And I have wanted to try and sell the property for quite some time, but then Grenfell happened and flats were valued at zero.
And flat owners like Liam haven't been able to sell.
we were innocent. We didn't know anything about this when we bought these properties. And, you know, we're caught in the middle.
There's been a dispute here between the building's owners and the government over the work needed and over whether a government fund will pay for some of it. The owners, Wallace Estates, say they didn't build the building and so they're not to blame. The owner of this building has now agreed to do the work that's needed to make it safe. It's doing the same with this building over here, another one in Salford, and this building just over here. Now, the government had taken the company to a tribunal, but just before a hearing was due to take place last month, the company agreed to do the work. And at that tribunal, the government was intending to use the Building Safety Act. That act was passed 2 years ago to ensure
that no leaseholder living in a building above 11 metres will ever face any costs for fixing dangerous cladding.
And here at this block in Castlefield in Manchester, new cladding like this has been installed and work is about to finish, and the residents haven't had to pay for it. Giles lives here and he's a cladiator, a cladding campaigner, who says loopholes are leading to long-running disputes at many places like Skyline.
The funding isn't always in place for all the safety defects. The government will say, OK, the building owner will fix that. The building owner turns around and said, actually, I don't have the money to fix that.
On top of that, people who own more than 3 flats still have to pay, as well as those in buildings less than 11 metres high. Landlords groups say the average landlord needs more support from the government. The government says the UK has some of the toughest building safety regulations in the world, but it says it knows more needs to be done, and faster. Phil McCann, BBC North West Tonight, Manchester.
And we occasionally report on the programme about the theft of things like lead from church roofs, but it turns out that thefts of historic stone and metal from the region's historic buildings generally are going up. That's according to a report by Historic England and the National Police Chiefs Council. Walls and paving slabs have been stolen in Cheshire, while granite troughs and fountains have been taken in other areas. Historic England says that the thefts rob us all of our collective history, as Juliet Phillips reports.
These weren't drugs or even weapons raids. The footage shows officers arresting heritage criminals who stole more than £100,000 of stone from churches across the region. Historic England say this type of crime is on the rise. They're working with police to try to tackle it.
So it's really opened some kind of doors that we wouldn't normally have. So when you talk about murder cases, you know that money's thrown at forensics there. We're getting that kind of funding from Historic England that allows us to use soil analysis, allows us to look at the kind of botany as well, what plants are on certain stones, and we're linking that back to offenders' vehicles, their homes and everything, and we're getting really solid cases.
St Mary's in Asbury had the paving stolen from this pathway. Research by Historic England and the National Police Chiefs Council has found thefts of historic stone as well as metal have increased.
Of course, you could just replace the stone with some new stone, but the stone that's been here is the stone that people have walked on for centuries. People are following in the footsteps of their ancestors, quite literally. This theft isn't just, a theft of physical fabric. It's a theft of our history and the history of the community that have worshipped here for hundreds of years.
The report also highlights the problem of vandalism, like this graffiti sprayed on Chester's historic city walls.
Today's research shows that theft of stones like the ones on this pathway has gone up by around 9%, and each square metre of York stone can cost around £400 to replace.
But it isn't just about the monetary value, but also the impact this type of crime can have on the community.
It was a grief reaction because people felt so deeply that it was a desecration. People use this building week in, week out to mark the important occasions in their lives. They walk round the churchyard, perhaps it's a place of prayer for them.
Whilst the criminals in this case were caught, Historic England are calling for police systems to more effectively record and analyse these types of crimes, which they say rob us of our collective history. Juliet Phillips, BBC North West Tonight, Cheshire.
Now, if you live in Liverpool, you might well recognise this young man behind me. His name's Bobby Colleran. He would have been 16 today. He's a familiar face outside schools in Liverpool, but Bobby is stuck in time. He was hit by a van at the age of 6 and killed outside his school. He would have been 16 today. It sparked a huge campaign to reduce the speed limit around the city's schools. And Katie Walderman has been to see Bobby's mum on the 10 years on from his death and the work of the charity that she set up in his memory.
He was the most gorgeous little boy. Oh, the stuff he used to get up to, you know, so mischievous, but in a really lovable way.
10 years ago, Joanne's life changed forever. She'd just picked up 6-year-old Bobby from school when he was hit by a van and killed.
He went to school, he never come home, and, you know, as a parent, we have to live with that.
Ever since, his family's fought to make the school run safer, leading the campaign in Bobby's name to try and get the speed limit around all schools in Liverpool reduced to 20 miles an hour.
And just last year, Bobby's base opened in the grounds of his old school. Initially, it was set up for road safety advice, but it now also offers bereavement support.
You know, the slow down with the roads was because of what happened to Bob, and then the take care was the aftermath of what the support I needed for his brothers.
That's not allowed to park there.
Today, pupils from his old school at Blackmore Park Primary have been given special road safety activity packs given out to every primary school in the city region ahead of what should have been Bobby's 16th birthday today.
Look out, it's home time.
I was just learning about how to be safe on the road. If you park by a building and kids are there, then it's dangerous for kids. You need to park in the right space and only walk on the road when the green man's on.
And while the message is getting through to the kids, it's not always followed by the grown-ups. As regular viewers will know, it's a constant topic of frustration.
Every child's really important here. We know that. We've lived that, and we never ever want to live that again. The Bobby Zones are there for a reason, and really trying to encourage through the children to say, Mum, don't park here, Dad, don't park here. So we try and do it from the inside out.
What would you say to any parents watching this who maybe don't always follow the rules outside school?
Oh, you know, just stop and think. Stop and think what you're doing, because any parent could have been me. You know, that could happen to anybody. And just stop for a minute, a little walk further away, you know, in the rain, it doesn't matter.
10 years on, the slow down for Bobby message is as important as ever.
The main thing that keeps me going, he'd be proud, because he loved helping people. So I know he'd be like kind of there going like, there's me, Mum, so I know he'd love it.
Katie Waldman, BBC North West Tonight, West Derby.
Yeah, memories of Bobby and the great work being done in his memory. Now, a teenager from Lancashire who struggled for years with anorexia has used her experiences to write a self-help book, which she hopes will help others. 18-year-old Grace Roy wrote the book while receiving treatment in hospital. It's called An Unconventional Mind. Kaya Black's been to see her.
I've struggled with anorexia for like the past 4 years. When I was admitted to hospital, I was quite lost and I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I felt like I didn't really have anything or anyone to fall back on. And writing the book really helped me, and it gave me something to do, and it kept me motivated, and it gave me a reason to keep on doing it and keep on waking up every day and doing what I needed to do to get better.
18-year-old Grace Roy was inspired to write her first book whilst receiving treatment in hospital for anorexia.
I think I just wanted to write something that would have helped me, and something that can help any number of people. Like, I think there's a lot in the book that I would have appreciated people telling me.
Grace called her book An Unconventional Mind because she says that's how she views herself.
There's no organisation going on inside my brain, and that is very much demonstrated throughout the book. It's got a bit of everything in there. There's a lot of poems in there, and anecdotes and stories, and just little tips and tricks and things to like lead your life by.
So how's it felt seeing everyone's responses to the book?
All the feedback has been so positive, and it's kind of stunned me. I didn't expect fully grown men to be reading it, but they are, and the feedback from them is amazing. And I've had teenagers reading it, I've had people younger than teenagers reading it, people saying how much it's helped them, and I just want people to feel less alone, and if I can do that in the form of a book, then that's amazing.
Kaya Black, BBC North West Tonight.
Now let's have a quick little bit of sport for you. The executive director of Preston North End says that English football is finished. unless it remains competitive. Peter Ridsdale's the man, of course. He was speaking after Premier League clubs failed to agree a deal which would see £900 million of funding go to the Football League. The removal of parachute payments of tens of millions of pounds, which is made to clubs relegated from the top division, is also a key point of debate.
At the moment, the cliff edge between the Premier League and the Football League is so great, with those clubs coming down with tens of millions of pounds. And it's very important for English football that we have a very strong, sustainable, competitive football league.
Peter Ridsdale, that Stoke long since stopped getting their parachute payments. They've been down for ages. There were some important games for some of our League One and League Two sides last night. The season's approaching an exciting conclusion, and as Richard Askham reports, the race for automatic promotion and a playoff place is really ramping up.
Blackpool struggled to win away from home earlier in the season, but are starting to make a habit of it, this time with 3 points at Northampton Town. Matt Pennington's scrappy second-half strike, the only goal of the game, to move Poole to within a point of the playoff spots. In League Two, Crewe kept up the pressure on the top three with a win by a single goal over bottom-of-the-table Sutton United, thanks to Elliot Nevett's 15th goal of the season. Barrow also maintained their position in the playoff places thanks to a hard-fought 1-1 draw at Walsall. Dean Campbell's spot kick earning the Bluebirds a valuable point on the road. Morecambe are only 3 points off the top seven, despite a dramatic 5-3 defeat at Newport. Gwion Edwards with 2 goals for the Shrimps, and Tranmere Rovers extended their unbeaten run to 3 games with a 2-1 win over leaders Mansfield at Prenton Park, thanks to goals from Regan Hendry and this one from Rob Apter.
And finds the bottom corner.
And after 4 defeats in a row and a turbulent season, Accrington Stanley will be buoyed by a timely 2-1 victory at Swindon. Alex Henderson's excellent strike the winner. Richard Askham, BBC North West Tonight.
Busy night, wasn't it, last night? Now, we've got the weather with Abby in just a moment, but before that, we're talking about these little fellas and students at Chester University who have received royal recognition for their efforts to protect and increase the numbers of hedgehogs living on their campus. Undergraduate Lyndon Howson was invited to Buckingham Palace by Prince Edward to talk about their conservation project. And Dave Guest, who didn't get to go to Buckingham Palace with him, but he has been to see him today.
They're shy, reserved creatures who prefer the quiet life. So at first glance, a lively university campus is possibly the last place a hedgehog would choose to call home. But the campus at Chester University is home to a growing colony of hedgehogs. Third-year student Lyndon leads a team dedicated to encouraging them to come and stay by creating feeding stations and homes and monitoring their welfare.
They are currently decreasing in population numbers, so it's important to try and increase that.
It's a project which began 4 years ago.
I thought it'd be a great idea having the conservation area already set up here on campus.
Did you even know at that stage whether you had any hedgehogs on the campus?
We had no idea if we had hedgehogs, and so it was a whole new, world really.
Turns out they did have hedgehogs, and now they have even more.
Well, this is one of 7 hedgehog houses they've placed around the campus. Now, this one's actually quite close to a busy university road, but it doesn't seem to bother the inhabitants. At this time of the year, you're unlikely to see a hedgehog out and about during daylight hours. So fortunately, the students have placed cameras at strategic points to see what happens after dark.
They've amassed a huge collection of images tracing the movements of the university's prickly tenants.
So basically we do it to keep track of the hedgehog populations on campus, just to make sure the work we're doing is actually benefiting them, if the populations are rising. We also use the footage to watch the Hedgehog Watch, which is part of Chester Zoo's initiative.
And you ended up going down to Buckingham Palace. What was that all about?
Yeah, so it was a fantastic opportunity. I got to go up on stage alongside His Royal Highness Prince Edward and talk about the work we're doing here at the university.
So we're really proud of students like Lyndon and Katie for the work they're doing with the Hedgehog Friendly Campus Survey. They're using their skills and their knowledge that they're learning here at the university and putting it into practice.
Lyndon is due to graduate this summer, but he's staying on to do a master's at Chester, so he'll be able to keep a close eye on things for some time yet. Dave Guest, BBC North West Tonight, Chester.
It's not really hedgehog weather. Apparently someone's just said they like prickly heat. We've got a lot of that at the moment, have we, Abby?
We haven't, no. I'd be surprised if anybody manages to get prickly heat in these temperatures, although it is getting a little bit milder, so maybe. That's, I think, the general theme over the next few days. Feeling a little more spring-like in the temperatures, but not really in how things actually look. It's going to be very cloudy, and we will see further heavy showers moving through tomorrow. Quite an unsettled night to come overnight tonight too. So our weather very much driven by low pressure over the next few days. It's also driving up this very mild southwesterly air, so temperatures will be above average over the next couple of days. A brief blip where those winds will swing around slightly to more of a northwesterly on Friday, and then mild again this weekend. But look at that radar from today. It's been quite a thin slice of rain, but it's been very heavy and it's almost got a little bit stuck. So continuing to bring some very heavy rain overnight tonight. There will likely be some very high rainfall totals and potentially a little bit of spray on the road first thing tomorrow morning. The winds will ease a little bit overnight tonight, and I think these will be our overnight lows. Very mild as we start the day tomorrow. Temperatures down at 7 or 8 degrees. So it's going to be a cloudy start. We'll see the remnants of that overnight rain clearing away to the north, then some showers moving through, some of these quite heavy. I think for a time early afternoon, we'll see skies brightening up a little bit. Windy, I think, by the afternoon tomorrow, and it'll stay quite blustery overnight into Friday. And our temperatures, 13 or 14 degrees Celsius. You will really notice just how mild it feels, I think, if you are out and about for tomorrow. And the air mass does show the very, very mild air moving in over the next couple of days. Just that brief change on Friday as our winds swing round to a little bit more of a northwesterly, so cooler Friday and overnight into Saturday, but then milder air moving back in again this weekend. This is how Friday is looking at the moment. Quite a cloudy start. Outbreaks of light rain in the morning, but into the afternoon it looks to turn drier with some sunshine. A little bit fresher, 10 or 11 degrees Celsius, and then drier and clearer overnight into Saturday, and that's what will allow our temperatures to drop a little bit. So a cooler start to the weekend, but dry with some sunshine Saturday morning, a little cloudier into the afternoon, outbreaks of patchy rain, but there will still be some drier intervals on Sunday too, and certainly staying mild, Rog.
Hey, but no prickly heat?
No prickly heat, no.
No, it's not too bad. We'll take that, won't we? It's a bit grey, but not too bad.
I know, at least the temperatures are heading in the right direction, thankfully, because I've put my summer dress on for today.
You're very smart. I'll be back with the late news at 10:30. Abby will be here as well. But in the meantime, from all of us, thanks for watching. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.